The lesson that we're going to be working with today is going to be context clues. In reading and comprehension, one of the things students have problems with is trying to understand unfamiliar words, and so through context clues, this will help the reader so that they can read through paragraphs and even longer segments like essays and then even longer things without having to pause and look up words. And so I'm going to take you through a PowerPoint to give you some different strategies to help you with context clues so you can understand how they're used and how they will help you throughout your comprehension. Okay. So the first thing that you need to know is the reading process. The reading process is how we start the context clues, because you need to know several things about the reading process. But the first thing that you need to understand is what comprehension is. And most people could give me a definition of what comprehension is, but I always like to give the textbook definition so that everybody is on the same page. When I teach the class, most of the things, every chapter that I use, I include keywords and definitions that will be needed to help you understand throughout the chapter. So comprehension is just understanding what you have read. Okay, pretty simple, but a lot of people don't know how to put it in those words. Another thing that people who have comprehension problems need to know, that the most important aspect of being an effective reader is being an active reader. And you know, most people think that being an active reader is reading all the time. I read a lot. But really, what an active reader means is that you ask questions, you find answers, and you react to the author's ideas. When you do these things, you become an active reader, and therefore you are actively involved in the reading process, and you tend to comprehend a little bit better. One of the other things that you need to know when you start the reading process is prior knowledge. And again, this is a term that a lot of us have probably heard, but we have the textbook definition, and prior knowledge is a large body of information that is learned throughout a lifetime of experience. Another short way to remember what prior knowledge is that it's what we already know. Short and simple, prior knowledge is what you already know. You might have experienced it, what you've learned, but it's what you already know from your past history. And this just kind of tells us the more prior knowledge we have about a subject, the more likely we are to understand it. Because if I know about a topic, then I'm reading about it, my prior knowledge gives me the ability to understand that information. So that's why, in order to become an effective reader, I have to build on my knowledge. So that means reading often, okay? Reading often, and also putting the active reader, and putting that or getting that involved, becoming an active reader, and getting more involved in what you're reading, okay? So those are just steps from the reading process. Another term that I like to introduce is vocabulary. Of course we know what vocabulary is, and the textbook, again, the definition is all the words used and understood by a person, okay? So understanding what vocabulary is very important, and understanding how important it is to the reading process. If you don't understand the vocabulary, or if you don't have a large vocabulary, that sometimes can affect our comprehension, and therefore I teach vocabulary along with the different strategies in our book. These are just a few pointers, okay? Did you know by the time that you're 18, you know about 60,000 words? Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But keep in mind, we learn words so many different ways. We learn words through other subjects. We learn words from our prior experience or our prior knowledge, which we talked about earlier. And then the second bullet, studies show that during college, we're going to add an additional 20,000 words to that. Because if you think about it, every subject that we go into has its own set of words, okay? So you're going to learn words not only through the reading process and through the reading class, but you will learn different words for math. Even math, yes, math has terminology or vocabulary words that you have to understand. Even your computer class, you'll have to learn words. So that's how they get the number. And of course, this is just a, this is a study, and it doesn't mean that everybody's going to have this set amount of words, but this is just, an estimate, okay? In order to learn these new words, we are going to do it through context clues, okay? Which is the title of this chapter. We went around and we went through the reading process, but I did that because it's important to understand the reading process. And then as we get to that point, the way we're going to learn these new words, the vocabulary words, we're going to combine all of those things. Prior knowledge, we're going to use vocabulary, but context clues, that's the way we're going to learn the meaning of unfamiliar words, okay? So remember I said that we have different ways to learn the meaning of words, and I always use terms throughout the chapter to help us understand these words. So the next term that I would introduce you to is, what is a context clue? Okay? A context clue is the information that surrounds a new word, and it's used to understand its meaning. Basically what that means is that we take an unfamiliar word, we put it in a sentence surrounded with words that we are familiar with, and then based on how it's presented in the sentence, we now have a context clue and we can figure out the meaning of the word. Okay? There are 4 types of context clues, and as you can see right here, we call this the SAGE method. Okay? Within this first part of context clues, we're only going to go over the first 2. We're going to go over synonyms and antonyms, and in the second part we'll cover general sense and examples. Okay? So to start out with the context clues, the first word that we need to identify, the first type of context clue is a synonym. And you've probably heard this before in your English classes, whether it was high school, whether you've used this in college, but synonyms, these are words that have the same or similar meaning as another word, okay? So they're very similar in meaning. Synonyms also use signal words. Usually when synonyms are used in the sentence, it's going to say they are, it's going to say that is, or it's going to have the word or, so you can use either one of those words. Synonyms are interchangeable, okay? So if I decide to put a synonym in the word, there's going to be a word within that sentence that has the same meaning. And usually what the author does is they'll give us an unfamiliar word, and then they will give us the synonym of that word, which is usually a word that we are familiar with. Okay? Here's an example sentence. The dentist gave me laughing gas to alleviate or ease the pain of taking out my wisdom teeth. Okay? And as you can see, the word that we're trying to define, the unfamiliar word, would be alleviate. You see our signal word or, so that means that our synonym is going to be on the other side of or. So alleviate or ease, they are synonyms, and so alleviate means to ease. Okay? And see what I said, as I said earlier, alleviate means to ease, and we can interchange those 2 words. One way to double check is to replace the word that you think is the meaning and put it in place of the unfamiliar word. Okay? The dentist gave me laughing gas to ease the pain of taking out my wisdom teeth. Okay? So it still has the same meaning. Therefore, we have chosen the correct definition. Alleviate and ease have the same meaning. Therefore, they are synonyms. Okay? The next one would be antonym. Okay? We said that antonym or synonyms have the same or similar meaning. So guess what antonyms are? Antonyms have opposite meaning. Okay? There are several signal words that help us recognize when an antonym is being used. Any word that takes us and shows us that there is something different, or they're taking us a different direction, but, yet, not, unlike, however, in contrast, any of these keywords show us that an antonym is going to be used, because it's going to say it's not like this. In contrast, so it's going to take us a different direction. Here's an example of an antonym used in a sentence. During dinner, Annie let out a loud burp that mortified her mother but amused her friends. So we're looking for the opposite of mortified, okay? The opposite of mortified would be amused. Another way to figure this out is you already have the keywords or the signal words. So you look for that signal word. On the other side of the signal word, which would be but is our signal word, this is what we're trying to define. This is what we understand on the other side of but. So these two are going to be opposite. Okay? So we're looking for the opposite of amused. So this is going to tell us that she was embarrassed. Okay? So Annie let out a loud burp that mortified her mother but amused her friends. And really, if you think about it, if it amuses your friends, what do you think it's going to do to your parents? They're going to be embarrassed. Okay? So that's how we look for the antonym, because it's going to show us an opposite look of the word we're trying to define. Okay? Again, signal words, but, yet, however, in contrast, not like, anything that shows it's going a different direction. Okay? And to end with this first part of context clues, I take you back to again, the SAGE method. So if you have trouble remembering the different types of context clues, you can use the acronym, you can use SAGE, and you can remember it this way. S means synonym, A means antonym, G is general context, and E is example. And remember, today we just went over, for this first lesson, we just went over synonyms and antonyms along with the reading process, comprehension, prior knowledge, and also what it means to be an active reader. Okay? So the next lesson we will continue with context clues, but we will go with general context and examples.